Hello, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at we're still in the early season for hurricane season this year, and we're going to be looking at another update for a forecast for this year for just basically what we can expect for this hurricane season. So earlier in the year, the Colorado State University gave out a forecast that basically said this year was going to be above average, and um, it is easy to agree with that since we have many factors indicating that that is going to happen, including the La Nina, triple dip La Nina, which is very rare, the very warm ocean waters and the high ocean heat content, and less wind shear expected for peak season and much of the rest of the season. Looking at their older prediction from a few months ago, we see they were predicting 19 named storms, 9 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes, going to almost the end of the naming list, but not quite there. Before, we were looking at maybe 17 to 20 named storms, and maybe 8 to 10 hurricanes, and maybe just a couple to 5 major hurricanes, and some strong rain falling storms possible. But now we have more information, and it is time to look at the updated forecast that CSU has for 2022. So, named storms 20, hurricanes 10, and major hurricanes 5. All above average and very worrying because this is almost getting to the end of the naming list, which has only happened twice. No, 3 times. We got into the Greek alphabet twice in 2005 and 2020, and we almost got to the auxiliary list for 2021. If 2022 has a very active peak season, then we could be seeing the end of the naming list this year. So I'm calling for 18 to 22 tropical storms in agreement with CSU. So we could be seeing just a lot of those tropical systems this year. And we will be tracking those systems on this channel. So keep an eye out for that and make sure to stay informed as we get further into the season. Alright, now we're going to be looking at the second part of our video, which is likely steering pattern and significant system tracks, and one more thing to talk about. So, we're expecting a Bermuda Azores high, allowing for systems to really move across the MDR and not move as north as they normally would. Also causing some cooler waters in the subtropical eastern Atlantic, and less tropical development possibilities there. Closer to the east coast, we could see some systems moving up the coast or just off the coast, becoming fish storms or impacting maritime Canada. But we could also be seeing some systems impact Florida this season, or we could see them go through the Caribbean and go and curve slightly eastwards and impact Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, or Louisiana. And we could also see some landfalling Mexican systems this year. Really watching the Caribbean, Florida, East Coast, and some of Mexico this year for the Atlantic. Texas, slightly less activity, but still above average, but not looking like the absolute hotspot as of now. But yeah, this high pressure really is allowing for these systems to move across the Atlantic and closer to the United States and North America. Looking at the next slide, we see cooler air, normal cooler air coming from Canada, trying to make its way into the Northeast as usual, and warmer air from the Gulf of Mexico. We see a lot of those warmer waters, almost like bathtub water in there with those temperatures, trying to move up into the continental United States. More on that upcoming pattern to come soon. But that is helping for those systems to potentially really develop in the Gulf of Mexico. Looking at our next slide, we see cooler waters predicted for me, predicted for the Eastern Atlantic, for the subtropics, and then in the MDR region, we see slightly above average, and then in that darker orange, we see even more above average waters. So we could be seeing some of those systems in the MDR more above average, and then basically anywhere along the East Coast and Texas, even more above average. And then in this white spot, you could see here, or rather this red region, we see the most likely tropical development, most above average expected. So for the hatched regions, I like to talk about those specifically. We could see seeing some of those stronger storms there. So for the red one along the Florida coast, we could be seeing some of those systems move up, or like that, and move up here where we could see, or like this anyway, and see them track towards Florida, where we could be seeing some major systems. We could also see them impacting the Carolinas or Virginia and moving up the East Coast or towards maritime Canada. That is all possible with this upcoming pattern, and we really need to be watching that. Any systems that make their way into the Gulf will likely slightly track east or move to the north, allowing for a lot of that uncertainty, but some potential major systems in the Gulf. There's a lot of ocean heat content right now in the Gulf of Mexico, and the ocean heat content in the Caribbean has really rose, and even in the MDR and even into the subtropical Atlantic, we've seen some of those values really increase, and the MDR even slight ocean heat content. So we really need to be watching that, and of course the waters are really warm. Third to last region, we see some of those major systems possible for Mexico. We could be seeing a couple of those stronger storms here, and then also from here, these systems early season and mid-season, we could be seeing them go anywhere from here. So Texas is not the major hotspot here, but we could still see a system here. But really, we're watching for these regions right here, where we could be seeing the most active systems that we really need to be watching for. And finally, just a lot of those normal waves coming off of Africa as they head west, due to the high pressure in the Atlantic, Bermuda Azores High. They could be moving slightly to the north or through the Caribbean islands or just south and impact the aforementioned regions. But yeah, some other things to point out. Potential for the strongest storms in the Gulf, but of course, any Caribbean or MDR storms could be very strong too. We could still see some major strong storms in the MDR and the Caribbean. Sea surface temperatures and ocean heat content are currently very high in the Gulf of Mexico. It is like bathwater, and of course, previously mentioned, it is climbing in the Caribbean and MDR. And finally, just a late season track, just to mention, for Cuba, possible other tracks, too. We could be seeing some of those normal late storm season tracks, with the pattern slightly changing at the ends of season. This is likely for peak season, but by the end of season, we could be seeing things quiet down like normal, and some systems really move out into the open waters like normal by the end of the season, but nothing too abnormal there. But definitely a major track that is possible for the latter part of the season, after peak season. For the final part of this video, we're just going to look at a few visuals, ocean heat content, a lot for the Gulf of Mexico. It actually has still been climbing, and the Caribbean really looks impressive. It has a lot of that high ocean heat content, and that's really something that we need to watch for. It looks very ominous as of now. The MDR, some ocean heat content, and it could be rising. And for the subtropical Atlantic, some of that rising. Really impressive Gulf Stream with bringing that ocean heat content and warmer waters out to the east, north and east, per usual, just very strong. And then as we could see, a cooler than normal Eastern Atlantic with a warmer MDR, Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, Maritime Canada, and Eastern United States offshore. Yeah, really something we need to watch for. We see that strong stream of warmer waters going up the East Coast. We really see a lot of those warmer waters really starting to head up north. We have very warm waters here. We'll be looking at that in a second. But yeah, just like I said several times before, like bathtub water in the Gulf of Mexico, and now actually going into the Northern Caribbean. We see a lot of those just very warm waters. Going into our region, we see very warm waters all the way up until 30 degrees Celsius in the Atlantic right now, which is around 86 degrees Fahrenheit, very warm. And then for our region, around 23 to 25 degrees Celsius, and then Fahrenheit, that is around 75 degrees Fahrenheit, still climbing, but very warm, something we need to really watch for our region and for the Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean, and basically just the MDR2, and just a better look. We could be seeing just a lot of those strong systems. We really need to be watching and keeping a close eye on the entire season this year. Just want to mention Eastern Pacific is slightly less active. So it's supposed to be slightly less active with the triple dip La Nina, where we've just been seeing more systems because of a stuck pattern, but as we get to peak season, we should be seeing more systems in the Atlantic and less in the Eastern Pacific. And in the Western Pacific, just an active season per usual. We've already seen a couple systems and some expected to come soon, not in the next week or two, but maybe by the end of that period and onwards, we could be seeing some more systems. That's going to do it. I hope you enjoyed this video and found any of this information useful. Stay tuned for more information and just more updates on tropical weather this year. Thank you for watching, and see you guys very soon.